Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The Ministry of Environment of Peru and the World Economic Forum. Before we actually going to do the ceremony of signing, I would like to introduce first Minister Manuel Pulgar Vidal Otalora from Peru, and also my colleague Rick Sammons from the World Economic Forum. And I would like to ask Rick Sammons maybe to give us the context of this signing of this Memorandum of Understanding, and then afterwards Minister Pulgar Vidal will give us his view from a Peruvian point of view.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. As participants here at the summit are well aware, climate change and its related impacts, such as extreme weather events, food crises, water crises, are one of the most pressing challenges that the world faces in the coming decades. Indeed, the forum itself conducts a survey each year of perceived risks to global welfare, and this set of risks came in to represent 4 of the top 10 risks in the most recent survey that was issued by the forum earlier this year. And partly as a result of this, the forum responded positively to a suggestion by the UN Secretary General last year to make our multi-stakeholder platform available for some thinking and more specifically some action by different stakeholders to advance progress on various aspects of mitigation and adaptation related to climate change. And in Davos in January, we organized what was for us an unprecedented constellation of over 30 different working sessions engaging business executives, experts, governmental leaders, international organizations, and the like, to try to figure out what might be a limited number of high-impact collective action undertakings that could reduce emissions or otherwise strengthen the resilience of economies in the face of these trends related to global warming. We are viewing this as a process. This was not simply a single event. We have committed to use our platforms with various partners to try to advance a number of these types of significant scale collective actions, public-private partnerships, to support in a complementary way the negotiation process that is taking place in the UN. And in that spirit, we had some discussions indeed here even at this summit, but today we're gathered specifically for the purpose of signing an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, with the government of Peru on an important aspect of this climate change collaboration. In December, in Lima, the government of Peru will be hosting the most important climate change negotiations that will take place in this year. And they anticipate, as I understand it, some 15,000 different participants. And obviously the eyes of the world will be upon Lima at that time, because it is the following year when the international community has set a goal of actually arriving at a strategy, arriving at an agreement in the UN and an associated set of other things that would help take the international community to the next much more concrete step toward mobilizing action on climate change. The collaboration that we're going to be signing today between the Forum and the government of Peru is to in Lima, advance the progress of some of these high-impact public-private cooperations on different dimensions of global warming in preparation for contributing to a successful outcome of this UN process in 2015. We will convene in particular under the umbrella of the Peruvian Partnership Dialogue, this set of conversations. And we welcome very much the cooperation with the government of Peru. We take very seriously the responsibility we have as perhaps the world's leading convener of multi-stakeholder dialogue and action on various types of regional and global issues. We think this is an extremely good and appropriate use of that platform, And so it's with pride and a sense of significant responsibility that we undertaking this cooperation with you, Minister, and your government later this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Minister Pulgar Vidal, why this is important for Peru.
Thank you. Let me say first how pleased I am to be here signing this MOU with the World Economic Forum. And let me say or give 4 very brief reflection notes to try to recognize why this is important to us. First, I think that having the WEF as a partner, it is important not only because the important role that the WEF, the World Economic Forum, is playing, but also because the role that Peru is playing as the hosting country of the next COP20. We as a country are playing a triple role: as a host, as an incoming presidency, as a country that has their own challenges to trying to develop their own climate agenda. In that sense, the motto of the World Economic Forum, improving the state of the world, it is exactly what we need to bring the climate debate to the debate on development, on economy, and on future. And I think that in that sense, having the World Economic Forum, it is one very important step forward to try to bring solution to this debate. My second reflection, it is around the role of the business sector. And in that sense, as Rich has already told, it is very important the role that the World Economic Forum has already played, bringing the climate debate to the different sessions. I went to Davos last January, and it has been very important what business sector has, it is discussing to trying to identify what is the role for trying to bring solution to what the world is waiting to us. Is waiting solutions framed by this concept of sense of urgency and level of ambition. We need to move quickly to try to have, by the end of December of 2015, a very strong agreement that can move the world to a next step, to a next generation measures. My third reflection, it is around the importance of having the World Economic Forum to create atmosphere of confidence. In this discussion, in this debate, there are different actors with different expectations, with different needs. There are not only different countries, but also different sectors that are trying to show their expectation and also to show us their needs. And in that sense, the World Economic Forum can bring the business sector in an atmosphere of confidence to try to talk with the civil society, with indigenous people, with the government, and to create public-private partnership to bring solution to this very urgent debate, the climate debate. And my fourth reflection, it is that with the World Economic Forum, I'm sure that we are not going just to organize a business day during the COP. What we are going is to bring the business sector to the core discussion or to the core debate on this climate conference. Because we know and we believe that to try to find solution, we need the business sector, as we need also the civil society and the business groups. But we don't need it in a separate way. We don't need it in a parallel events. We need discussing with them to try to bring solutions to the planet. And in that sense, we feel that the World Economic Forum can create this atmosphere of confidence to try to bring the business sector to show what they have already done or what are their suggestions, their proposals, their solutions, to try to find together, every sector, what we are seeking and what we know we can achieve. We have a lot of expectation in the next COP20. We know that Peru can do it and can play a very important role. And we want to achieve, and we want to have as an output of the COP20, a very strong draft agreement to be signed in Paris in the next year. But on the other hand, we know that we can play a role to try to unblock the discussions around finance. We can bring some kind of implementation or pilot project around RED Plus. We can also bring some content to what it is called adaptation. We also can play a role regarding what it is the loss and damage debate. We also can do something to try to have the capacity building and transfer of technology solutions as measures of implementation. So with the World Economic Forum, we can work a lot in trying to achieve and to fulfill with that objective and with that goal. So this is why we consider as the government of Peru, as a Minister of the Environment, that this is one important step in our objective to be and to have success during the COP20. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. We're going to proceed now with the signature of the Memorandum of Understanding, and should you have any questions, we're happy to address them afterwards.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I look forward to the cooperation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can take a picture with them.
Very good.
This one for you, one for us.
Indeed.
Here, to show them. Oh, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Are there any questions?
¿Hay alguna pregunta?
Please.
Richard Bauer, I'm a correspondent for the Swiss daily NZZ in Zurich and based in Lima. Desde este año estoy cubriendo los países.
From this year, I'm starting to cover the Pacific Alliance.
The World Economic Forum, Mr. Samans, if you could say what concrete actions could take place in preparing this event in December from your side. I have already understood that Minister Pulgar Vidal would like to have the business aspect intertwined in all the discussions, not in separate events. But what could the WEF do to prepare this event in Peru? Do we have already some ideas?
We do.
Just grating.
We do. Insofar as that this is, we don't view this as an event. We view this as a very important process. And for the COP in Lima, which of course is over a series of days, as a very important opportunity to bring the governmental world into direct discussion with some of the companies and NGOs and other experts in a few key areas. So while I don't know exactly what the outcome will be yet, because it is a process that's going to unfold over the next several months, I can tell you a few of the areas in which we've already been doing some preparatory work. One is in the area of deforestation. This is one of the problems where you don't necessarily need a 200 government treaty to affect major action, because the sourcing of tropical forest products often tend to be quite concentrated in a number of companies. And so we are engaging in discussions with some of the most important companies in that trade to see whether it might be possible to get a critical mass of them to agree to certain behaviors in avoiding the sourcing of unsustainably harvested forestry products. That's one example. Another example I might give you would be in the realm of climate-smart agriculture. So many countries, because of the stress on water supplies that global warming creates, are thinking much more seriously about how you improve the efficiency of their agricultural production, and particularly in the use of water, but other dimensions as well. And this dovetails with a multi-year piece of work in the Forum right now on developing public-private interventions in agricultural value chains to move our conception of development assistance on food security from a grant mentality to developing sustainable value chains so that they have a self-sustaining effect. And so this piece of work will be looking about how we can introduce climate-smart elements into those developing country agricultural production value chains. There are a few other areas, including with respect to short-term climate pollutants, which have a very high degree of potency. They don't get as much attention as carbon dioxide, but here again, it may be possible through the cooperation of concentrated groups of producers and consumers of those types of short-term climate pollutants, that if they were to agree on reducing or otherwise controlling and monitoring their emissions of things like methane, that could have a very significant contribution and could help improve the political environment, give people a sense of confidence, as the minister was saying, that this is not an insoluble problem. It actually is possible to make some very important interim progress, even as the negotiations unfold, and even as the technology and research needs to advance for longer-term solutions. So these are a few examples of the kinds of things that we are preparing.
No, it is not the first. Yesterday, or 2 days ago, we have just signed an agreement with COICA, the Corporación de Organizaciones Indígenas de la Cuenca Amazónica, because we believe that the only way to move toward an agreement is in a very open and transparent way. And we should avoid what we had suffered in Warsaw, in which some of the biggest NGOs of the world went outside the room because they didn't believe that there were the atmosphere of confidence that this kind of negotiation needs. So we have already signed with COICA. Now we are signing with the World Economic Forum. Probably we're going to have an agreement with the civil society groups. We are working on that because the only way to bring solution is if we work together.
There's another question there, front.
Hi, Tiffany Grabsky, SNL Financial. For Ministro Pulgar, I wanted to know if you could just develop why Peru wanted COP20 to take place in Lima, in Peru, and if they themselves have kind of goals for Peru specifically that this agreement or this event will help change in the environmental aspects that are affecting Peru right now.
Interesting question. It is not that we have become in crisis, but we believe that the COP is a good opportunity. It is a good opportunity first to show how well Peru is performing in economy and social inclusiveness. It is also a good opportunity to try to raise our public climate agenda, because this is the time in which, and that is the third reason, that we can bring to the country what we believe that it is. This is not a debate of or for environmentalists. This is a debate of development, this is an economic debate, this is a debate on the future. So this is an opportunity to bring all the sectors to discuss how we are seeking, how we are looking the future of the country, the future of our economy, the future of our development. And the fourth reason is that we are completely sure that we can play a very important role as a developing country, as a country who is performing a very good development, growing an economy, a country with a lot of biodiversity, a country, a multicultural country. So we have a lot of elements that can bring confidence to the different government, states, sectors, and players to bring it together to the table to try to get an agreement by the end, a draft agreement by the end of this year, and we hope an agreement already signed by the end of the next year.
Any specific goals for Peru in particular for the environment?
Sure. We have already identified 5 topics of interest that have a lot of coincidence of what Rick has already told. We want to work on forest, indigenous peoples, and conservation. That is the first topic. The second one, it is regarding the mountains, the glacier melting, and water security. The third one, it is oceans, because we have one of the most richest oceans based in one fishery activity, because the cold current of Humboldt. The fourth one, it is energy, probably the most important topic in this discussion. And the fifth one, even though Peru is not still suffering what many countries are suffering, it's sustainable cities. The role of the cities in trying to mitigate CO2 emission. So that is one part. On the other hand, we are working very, very strongly in trying to update our climate agenda, our climate strategy, and also to try to develop some very specific measures regarding to reuse of PET, some kind of measures regarding to the use of incandescent, to forbid the use of incandescent bulbs, among many others. And also, I hope that in this year with the Ministry of Finance, we can begin to think about our strategy for a green economy. And also we should work and we should show that we can be a model. We should work in our national contribution, because there is a mandate that the country should put on the table the national contribution by the first quarter of 2015. So we are working on that based on what it is called the Plan CC. That is a prospective research of how we are thinking or how we are looking our economy in the future with low carbon emissions.
Other question? Yes, please, lady here in the front.
Thank you. My name is Patricia Moore. I'm with American Airlines Nexus Magazine. And I have a question for the WFE, whomever wants to answer. It's about the data that you have about CO2 emissions. Because you're helping the non-developing countries for diminishing their CO2, but what about the North and the developing countries in their emissions?
Well, our work is not limited to developing countries. For example, another area that I didn't mention, which is financing for sustainable infrastructure or industry. The discussions and the work that's going on, while they have a focus on developing countries because there's a huge need for capital there, it's global in scope. So I think if your question is, why are we focusing only on developing countries, the data that we have.
Of CO2 emissions compared to the South,
Yeah.
for example.
I'm not sure I can, well, first of all, we do not ourselves as an institution collect CO2 data internationally. There are other international institutions that provide that function. And so we could talk to you offline perhaps if you're looking for that information. We can point you in the direction of those sources. It is true historically, obviously, that the North, as you put it, is primarily responsible for the buildup of the stock of emissions in the atmosphere. However, the flow is changing quite dramatically insofar as China has become the leading emitter. And growth, economic growth, has shifted quite significantly in the last decade from traditional northern OECD countries to major emerging market economies. So the growth in emissions, the share of it is increasingly assumed by developing countries. So it's a shifting pattern. But I'm unable at this moment off the top of my head to give you precise statistics, but would be happy to point you in the direction where you can find them.
Any other questions? If that's not the case, then I thank you for having joined us here and wish you a nice afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Gracias.
Look forward to working with you.
Okay. Muchas gracias. Encantado de verlo. His view from a Peruvian point of view.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. As participants here at the summit are well aware, climate change and its related impacts, such as extreme weather events, food crises, water crises, are one of the most pressing challenges that the world faces in the coming decades. Indeed, the forum itself conducts a survey each year of perceived risks to global welfare, and this set of risks came in to represent 4 of the top 10 risks in the most recent survey that was issued by the forum earlier this year. And partly as a result of this, the forum responded positively to a suggestion by the UN Secretary General last year to make our
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The Ministry of Environment of Peru and the World Economic Forum. Before we actually going to do the ceremony of signing, I would like to introduce first Minister Manuel Pulgar Vidal Otalora from Peru, and also my colleague Rick Sammons from the World Economic Forum. And I would like to ask Rick Sammons maybe to give us the context of this signing of this Memorandum of Understanding, and then afterwards Minister Pulgar Vidal will give us...
of the world will be upon Lima at that time, because it is the following year when the international community has set a goal of actually arriving at a strategy, arriving at an agreement in the UN and an associated set of other things that would help take the international community to the next much more concrete step toward mobilizing action on climate change. The collaboration that we're going to be signing today between the Forum and the government of Peru is to in Lima, advance the progress of some of these high-impact public-private cooperations on different dimensions of global warming in preparation for contributing to a successful outcome of this UN process in 2015. We will convene in particular under the umbrella of the Peruvian partnership to use our platforms with various partners to try to advance a number of these types of significant scale collective actions, public-private partnerships, to support in a complementary way the negotiation process that is taking place in the UN. And in that spirit, we had some discussions indeed here even at this summit, but today we're gathered specifically for the purpose of signing an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, with the government of Peru on an important aspect of this climate change collaboration. In December, in Lima, the government of Peru will be hosting the most important climate change negotiations that will take place in this year. And they anticipate, as I understand it, some 15,000 different participants. And obviously the stakeholder platform available for some thinking and more specifically some action by different stakeholders to advance progress on various aspects of mitigation and adaptation related to climate change. And in Davos in January, we organized what was for us an unprecedented constellation of over 30 different working sessions engaging business executives, experts, governmental leaders, international organizations, and the like, to try to figure out what might be a limited number of high-impact collective action undertakings that could reduce emissions or otherwise strengthen the resilience of economies in the face of these trends related to global warming. We are viewing this as a process. This was not simply a single event. We have committed